My name is Kaherl and I run Detroit Soup. If you're not, I like to do this at Soup. So how many of you have ever been to a Detroit Soup before? Oh my gosh, it's like the opposite of what normally happens. What happens is, it's like, if this is your first time at Soup, it's usually 80% of the room and 20% of the people have been there before. So thank you for being here and encountering Detroit Soup. For those who haven't been there, Detroit Soup is a micro-granting dinner that funds creative projects for the city of Detroit. So for $5, you get soup, salad, bread, and a vote. Excuse me. And what you're voting on is different projects from around the city. So they could be art, urban agriculture, social justice, social entrepreneurs, education, technology. Basically any idea that you have that makes Detroit better. And so if you were presenting, you would have 4 minutes to share your idea. And there's 4 presenters, and then you get 4 questions from our diners. And then we have a chance to eat, vote, and whoever has the most votes at the end of the night takes the money from the door. So as of last night, because we had a soup in the Livernois corridor, we're moving into a neighborhood initiative. Detroiters have given back to Detroiters close to $32,000 for creative initiatives. So applaud you. It's really exciting to see how, as we're talking about the ideas of food, how food really is the gathering point. It gets people into the door. It's a safe thing that we know how to do as we engage in something that's uncomfortable, because we have boards and old doors that sit on crates on the floor that is beautifully redone. But sometimes that's not comfortable. And sometimes you have to have a conversation with people that's not comfortable. But what I also love, not just past the money, is the way that people connect. So people share their resources, their time, their talents. We've had a couple meet and get married. We've had people get jobs. We've had people share resources, start new creative initiatives. So that's really the exciting part. And in the last 6 months, we've really started moving towards a more neighborhood-based soup model, so neighbors can start helping neighbors talk about what they need within their community. So that's Detroit Soup.
Hello, I'm going to test the microphone a little bit. There we go. Hi, Nicole Rupersburg. I do write for Eat It Detroit. That is pretty much 100% me. I do have someone who helps me out on occasion, my co-conspirator Stephanie Cobb, and I'm so lucky to have her, but for the most part, all me all the time. I also am a freelance writer, journalist, person of the media. I wear many different hats. A couple of my titles currently include Development News Editor for Model D, Managing Editor of Urban Innovation Exchange, staff writer for Real Detroit Weekly. But I will say one thing that people ask me a lot, because I am 100% freelance, I work totally for myself. People are really interested in that, like how do you survive on that, and how did you get into that? And basically, to make a long story short, it was really because of some just blogging I was doing. I got a lot into food writing, and people really attached themselves to that. And that's really how I started to build a name for myself and started getting actual paid writing gigs instead of just blogging for free. My first ever paid gig was with Model D in 2009 about taco trucks in Southwest Detroit. So it's very near and dear to my heart, but that's really how I built my name. So it's been sort of my cornerstone for all of this time. And with today's theme being food, like I've always kind of said, like this really critical thing happened in 2007, 2008, 2009. We all know what those days were like. they weren't happy times. And that's when, quote unquote, foodie culture really started to rise. And I think that's part of the reason why I was able to sort of launch a career based on that. Food has this inherently social component, number one, but there's also this, accessibility. Everybody eats. Like, this is the one universal thing we all have in common, whether you can afford fancy dinners and coursed out meals by chefs, or get a really good slice of pizza somewhere. Like, this is something that we all all do. And I think that, at a point in time when everything else was sort of falling apart and people were losing their jobs and their homes and everything else, like, this was the one thing that kind of connected us all. So I am coming from more like a business perspective, because I do a lot of development, business, entrepreneurship, writing, but I definitely see how food plays this very critical role in community development and how we connect.
So you said something about a taco truck. What's your favorite taco truck? Before I forget.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick plug here. On June 29th, you can join me with Detroit Bus Company as we have a fully well-rounded Detroit food experience. And one of the things we'll be doing is stopping by Clark Park and having a picnic in the park catered by Los Unicos Taco Truck. So.
Ooh, that sounds lovely. Okay, so Nicole and I just decided that we just wanted to have a conversation. And so we're going to talk for probably like 15, 20 minutes, and then any questions you all have, please just jump in, ask us anything.
Let's start with Amy had a bit of a big week. I don't know if you guys know this. So that she doesn't have to feel like she's tooting her own horn, I'll toot it for her. She was just among one of 12 people honored by the White House as a champion of change, people all across the United States. So tell us a little bit about your experience with the White House.
Sure. I am floored and honored, and I will be very honest and say I hustled a little bit to get this. I had gotten an email probably like a month and a half ago saying that, there's a crowdfunding champion of change. So are you aware of what crowdfunding is? I mean, basically. So there was 12 of us who were acknowledged for being maybe pioneers around the ideas of crowdfunding. So there was probably half the panel, there was 12 of us, so half the panel were people who used crowdfunding to kickstart or launch their business. A lot of them asked for $30,000 and got $300,000, which is very uncommon. And then there was 3 of us who actually have crowdfunding platforms. So, and Detroit Soup was the only offline event. Everything else was based off the internet. The best day of my whole life. I did not get inside the White House, but there's executive offices next door, and we did meet. I mean, her title. I met someone who works closely with the president. Her title was like 16 words long, so I don't really know. But what was really exciting is that a really good friend of mine was at the Heidelberg Project last week, and in the gift shop there was a shoe. And the shoe that was part of last year's,
The name of it,
it was
was
all the shoes. Part of our next, thank you. It said, I want my shoe to go to the White House to meet the president, parentheses Obama. Obama will show it to all the people. So he took this shoe on a journey to the White House, and I actually got to give it to this woman with 16 words in her name. And hopefully Obama gets to see the shoe. And I think that, for me, sums up the most. I love little artifacts that really share more of how I feel. I can't put into words what it means. I think someone said, you'll go down in history. And I said, oh wow, I never even thought of that. And when they said there was probably 2 million people watching the live stream, I didn't think about that either. And I was so honored to represent Detroit and what that means for the community. And I think that's more important to me than even what I'm doing, because it really is just, again, creating safe spaces for people to gather, to have conversation. The thing that I love the most about Detroit is that we're all on the same team. We just don't know who each other are sometimes quite yet. And I think Soup allows that to happen and allows people to gather. So if you haven't been to Soup, you should come. So I have a question. As you write about food, and you said starting in about 2008, and that's when I lived in Los Angeles from 2005 until 2008, and came back right again when everything kind of fell apart.
The dark days.
Yeah. But for me, I think it was like the best days.
Yeah.
So how do you see food, as we think about like Detroit is revitalizing, how do you see food playing a role in this revitalization?
Cut me off if I go on and on and on about this. I think one of the really interesting things that I've, living in Detroit for all these years, I stayed here and I've seen this sort of evolution happen. in 2007, 2008, 2009, the story was always like, what's closed now? What business is folded? What business is gone under? Who's left? And now the conversation is totally pulled to 180, and it's like, look at all these great places that are opening. And I think, a lot of people can sort of be a little snarky about like, oh, Detroit really needs another coffee house because there's all these coffee houses opening.
Yes, we do.
We always need more coffee. Until the day comes when I can roll out of bed and land in a coffee house, I will not be satisfied. But I think this is really more than anything, it's an economic indicator. Like using coffee houses specifically as an example, if we can sustain this many, that really says something about the strength of the community and the fact that the economy is recovering and the fact that, people do want to see these things happen. So I think, yes, Dan Gilbert is buying a bunch of buildings, and that is fantastic. Let's not, understate millions and millions of dollars in development, but also when these smaller food-based businesses start opening up and staying open, I think that reflects a lot more about what's happening on our level versus the millionaire level,
What kind of food businesses do you see opening outside of just coffee shops?
A lot of, obviously the artisan food movement and the local food movement is really what's big right now. And I hate saying what's big because it makes it sound trendy or like at some point in time it will no longer be big. But that's really what we're seeing more and more of is just these, small, whether it's cottage food industry, people who sell through farmers markets and various events, or people who are actually opening their own storefronts. It's all handcrafted, small batch, locally sourced. There's a lot more care going into food now than, there's a lot more thought and care than there was.
As I think about Detroit Soup and I think about how people come together over, a vegan soup, or now it's starting to become vegetarian, and a lot of people are like, but I'm a carnivore and I want meat. I'm like, okay, then you make it. How have you seen as these businesses opening, are these, as you get to write about them, have you talked to these business owners like around the ideas of food? What's their intention outside of making their money or starting a business?
Well, you hear a lot about the triple bottom line business model. But that's something people really are taking very seriously, and we're seeing it more, I think, in food businesses than with any other business. The triple bottom line is both, is the economic, the social, and the environmental components, and sort of feeding back into all of that. We've got Food Lab, which I believe we have a representative in here somewhere. Davita, is she here? Hi, Davita. Food Lab is this sort of network of different triple bottom line food entrepreneurs, and once again, whether it's people who actually own storefronts or people who just have little cottage industry startups, these are things people care about. So it's much more than just making money. It's about giving back into the community and being sustainably minded and being very socially minded. Which, really goes back right into soup, because that's ultimately where soup kind of began. It was, pay $5 for bread and vote, right?
Yeah, and I think too, it's really fascinating. When we first started, we had ceramic dishes and access to sinks, and only 75 people. And over the 3.5 years we've been doing this, we've grown to there's been a few soups in the beginning of 2013 that have peaked over 300. And so, I can't do dishes for 300 people. I have no interest in that. I don't even do dishes for myself. And so luckily we've been really, I feel really lucky that we have green safe products. And so just by having that, I feel like we can compost these dishes, that we try to compost the food. It's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. And I'm the farthest thing from a foodie. I actually don't cook at home.
I don't either.
Which maybe makes me a foodie in a little bit. And if I had my way, I would eat pizza and chicken wings every day. And no shame in this game. But I love watching, there's a group of ladies who started doing, it's called What's the Soup? And every soup Sunday that we have, they gather a few hours before our dinner, and they make mimosas, they have all the ingredients, and they sit and they talk and they make food together. And I think that's such a beautiful model of togetherness and conversation. And I got to go, not this month, but last month, and there was multi-generation, so I got to start asking these older women who've lived in the city for a long time, just their stories, and seeing people their ideas change around the ideas of Detroit and community and what that looks like. And also just people who have gardens will start making salads from their gardens. And when you step back and you really think about that, like gardening is not easy, right? I mean, how have you met people who do that? Have you met people who have urban farms or gardens?
Oh yeah, I've interviewed a lot of people, and it's, it is a full-time job, and it's not a glamorous lifestyle. It's very hard work, and even to just have a small community plot that people contribute to collectively, or even just your own garden. Like, I don't garden.
Right.
It looks hard.
It is hard. We seem to be about the same. Like, we use food as a way to connect back to the community, and yet we aren't obsessive about it ourselves. So what is it about the food that helps you go and be, what about it? I mean, I can tell my own personal stories about why I don't think I cook at home, because I'm single and by myself. Maybe you're the same way. But what is it about this food that as you enter in the community, what has it offered to you outside of a job?
Outside the job. See, I'm always work all the time, so that's how I think of it. I don't know, I guess I have to if you look at it from a purely social component, it's food is sort of something that, again, we all eat. It's something we all have in common, it's universal. Going from, early childhood to sitting down to family dinners to, as a teenager, you hang out in Coney Islands and diners because that's how you get away from your parents and that's how you really start establishing your autonomy. Into adulthood when, you go on, you meet someone, you want to go on a date, you want to get together with friends, what do? You go out to dinner. It's, whether we are consciously aware of it or not, food, our lives totally circle around food. All the time. It's there every single day, to the point that it's like the air we breathe, we just don't notice it. So that's, for me, it's been, again, I sort of fell into this niche as a food writer, no complaints, but, for me it was very interesting, I guess if I want to really get into my own, how I got interested in it. I grew up on, hamburger helper and shake and bake at home, so when I started seeing this whole culinary world open up to me into adulthood, I was like, wow, there's so much more going on than hamburger helper and shake and bake. So that was my level of interest in it. It's wow, I kind of want to share this with other people. This is kind of cool. So again, it's something that everyone can sort of latch onto and relate to. I think that answers your question.
So if someone out here hasn't read your blog or
I swear a lot, so just forewarning.
Great. So what? Right? I mean, honesty is what gets us through the day, right? I don't want to pretend that it's what you assume I want to hear. It's more of what you're telling. So can you tell me maybe your take on food then?
Again, I'm very sassy. I'm actually, for me, it's less about the food itself. I'm not what I would call a food critic or a food reviewer. I don't sit there and talk about, the textures and the layers and the presentation. I don't really care about all that. Tastes good or it doesn't. I'm more interested in the people behind it, and it's always been my interest. That's what I focus on. It's not, if I write a story about a restaurant, it's not about the restaurant. It's about the chef. It's about the owner. It's about the people who make it happen. Because it does, this goes into entrepreneurship and business development and things like that. And food is the thing that starts all of it. So that's the perspective that I come from. Is I really just care about the people. If that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely does. And as I think about soup, the same way, as you said that, I was like, you are exactly right. I feel like with soup, yes, you only get 4 minutes to share your story. But it's about you as a person, it's about you and this idea, it's about you and the way that you view the world and where you come from. I've had a lot of conversations, and I think specifically off this White House conversation I think we allow people to fail at soup. So we're not giving you $25,000 to start up your business or to move your idea forward. We're just giving you $700 or $1,700 to take your idea and move it from point A to literally point B. And I think a lot of times getting off the ground is a really hard thing to do, and we've watched this, and a lot of times people say, I want to do X, and they come back 2 months later to share what they've done with their money, and their reaction is 3. It's that different from what they thought was going to happen to what actually happened. taking hypothesis to, hypothesis to actually like practical application, which now I can say that, 3 or 4 of them actually have started into small businesses, a handful of them are nonprofits. I mean, that's a really big deal. And I think too, I've heard over and over again from soup winners is that after they won, they said, oh wow, people really think this is a good idea, and maybe I should actually do something with it. So now we have, right? All of you who are out here are probably going, I have an idea and I want to do something about it. But how many of you have probably had 76 people around you going, are you sure you want, that's what you want to do? It took my father a year to come to soup. It took him another year to go, and then it's another 6 months of, you want to live where? You want to do what? And you go, I believe in this is what I want. And when you have an idea and you get it going, you just gotta have people around you who believe in you, or to start asking you questions that you never thought, dreamed, or imagined. And because you think about it all the time, and sometimes you get stuck in that rut. And then when the diners start asking you questions, that's my favorite part about soup, is when the diners give you feedback. Because you could have practiced your pitch for 14 days, over and over and over again. But when it comes down to your idea, I watch people step back from the mic. I start people giving real eye contact. You have people start saying, oh yeah, I have thought about this. Oh, I didn't know that this was out there. Oh, could you connect me to that resource? That's how a strong community can come about. And it's about how people connect with other people.
Now, obviously, I too have been to soup. There's something, it's really hard, it's really difficult to just, stand in front of a crowd of 300 people and essentially ask for money, right? It's difficult, it's very uncomfortable. But there's something that's so unique about soup because it's such a comfortable, welcoming environment. And most people don't know everybody else who's there. It's always,
right.
Like you said, it's 80% new people every single time. It's like, so it's all these new people, you're in this situation where you're sitting down at these community tables and talking to people you don't know. Like, what makes it such a comfortable environment where people feel okay being like, give me $700 for my little idea?
I think that so doors open at 6 o'clock. My background is theology with an emphasis in pop culture. So for me, I'm really fascinated in how people make meaning out of their everyday experiences. So for me, I thought, and as we started creating soup, give people an hour to get in the door. Don't have it, when you say it's 6, and be very clear. Doors open at 6, proposals start at 7. As Detroiters, we are late. I'm often late. Which, when I first moved here, I was never late. Now I'm always like, I'm 10 minutes late, sorry. It's like such
and everyone else is like, I am too, it's okay.
It's such a Detroit thing. And I was like, I'm starting at 7 o'clock. Well, now I start at 7:07 or something like that. And when you come in, I always try to have music so that there's an environment that you feel like, well, I know the song. We have proposals of the projects on the table, so that if you come by yourself or one other person, you have something to do. Or if you have your smartphone, we allow you to play on that smartphone. When we first started, we used to have dinner first and then the proposals. Well, when it started getting past 65 people, whoever was number 1 getting dinner was way done by the time the last person got food. So I switched it up. And we had the proposals first, and then we ate. Because why? Now we haven't had a shared experience. I can go to you and to go, hey, what proposal did you like? I might not know you, but we just had this experience. And I also like to encourage people that this is your event. And it's up to you how you want to create meaning from this situation. I'm not here to entertain you. I found a really beautiful home for soup 3 different times. And, the first time I didn't do it. I want to be very clear on that. And so that helps. A space helps. But I like the rawness of the space because it allows, the idea that anything can happen in here, just like anything can happen in Detroit. And so after you have this shared experience, thank you. So here we are. You can look to your neighbor and say, and there's bread on the table, so if you're a little hungry, you have something to munch on. You can look to your neighbor who you might not know and say, well, what project did you vote for? Or what are you going to vote for? And all of a sudden now you have space and time for conversation. And I think that giving people time is why it feels safe and why it feels good. And this building is insane, so that also doesn't hurt when you go into soup as well.
So basically it's sort of like a pre-planned dinner party full of people who don't necessarily know each other, but who all have the common idea that they want to support something local and something community-driven.
Absolutely. I think, of all the projects, they're always not about one person. It's not like, I'm going to give you X. It's about how this project is impacting the community outside of themselves over and over and over again. That's who wins at soup. And so people want to do good. People want to give back. People want to help. But a lot of times we don't even know where to start. And I think soup's a great place to do that. And I meet people all the time who've just moved into the city, and they start at soup, because that's a great place to meet people. Someone's like, I met so many friends after coming to soup, and now my community is based around who I ate with.
Yeah.
And I think also it's such a age-diverse group as well. You don't have to be 18 to walk in the door. You can be 7 and vote. And I think that's really, I've heard from a 12-year-old, her mother came up to me and she's like, she was so excited to share her voice in that voting booth. And I think that's really exciting too.
It's interesting that you talk about people meeting friends and sort of like building their own social circles and their own communities based on who they're meeting at soup. I used to run a supper club event, a monthly supper club event through Detroit Synergy Group, if you guys maybe have heard of that. This was a few years ago, but I would get feedback from people. Like, I didn't really think much of it. I was just like, oh, it's this dinner thing that I do and whatever, and people go and they have a meal and it's fun. And people would start coming up to me afterwards. I would get a lot of people coming in by themselves. And they came with the intention of, like, I want to be social, I want to meet some new people, this is a great opportunity for me to do that. So people would come up afterwards and say, thank you so much for doing this. I look forward to this event every single month. I meet so many people this way. This is such a great social opportunity for me. And I was like, wow, like, I never even thought I was doing something of actual use. I thought we're just, eating.
And I think too, a lot of times when we hear of networking meetings, they're usually very businessy, and you come in and you are, you have a drink in your hand, you have your business cards in your pocket, and the goal is to get all your business cards out by the end of the night. And I think when you're sitting around food, it changes the game, because it takes that, like, kind of, I have like club music going on in my head with like dim lights, and like the swagger's gone a little bit. And I mean, you can't, going into the jam handy with a suit, you feel really out of place. And that's because I'm a very casual person. And I think most people are most themselves when they can be in their what they feel good in, which is oftentimes jeans and a t-shirt, right? Like, we feel good, or we feel like, I'm not here to have a dance party, though, I DJ too, so, don't put it past me, but
It's not off the table.
But I think it's just a really exciting environment to really be the most yourself, to feel very comfortable, and to gather together to talk about what people love most, which is and now as we're moving into the neighborhoods, their neighborhood, right? They chose to live here, and they want to be here, and they want to talk and engage. And something also I've been finding too, as I've been thinking more about the Detroit soup dinner, the big one, rather than the neighborhoods, is that it's starting to become a gateway from the suburbs into the city. It's kind of saying, welcome back, welcome home, welcome to the city that is trying to do something different, and here's something that we're doing that's not a Tigers game, it's not a Lions game, and it's not Slowe's Barbecue. And I love Phil, and Phil helped me out a crap ton yesterday, and we've shared this conversation. He goes, no, that's exactly it. We need people to come into the city. That's not just a restaurant, that are sharing experiences. And for me, I hope it becomes like a healing space for people to say, okay, we're gonna, so my cousins who live at 26 Mile, and they live in New Baltimore, that's far away. They don't like the city, and they came into soup, and they looked at me and said, this is incredible. I can't wait to come back. that says a lot about the city. North End right now, like on East Grand Boulevard, the streetlights don't work. So when you leave, you gotta walk in the dark. And, maybe enough people come to Soup, maybe the streetlights might come out. Or maybe somebody might buy the building next to the Jam Handy and say, I wanna be a part of this. I'm not sure, but that's not up for me to decide. That's for the community to decide and to find value and worth within it.
It's, as you may have heard, Whole Foods opened this week. And it's interesting, you'll hear a lot of talk about the Whole Foods effect, and I'm not interested in arguing the color of red herrings here, but the Whole Food effect is basically the idea that Whole Foods comes into a place and makes it sort of a safe and comfortable place for other major retailers to say, oh, okay, well, I guess we could try that too if Whole Foods did it. I feel like Soup in some ways might be sort of like the local equivalent of the Whole Foods effect, because you're sort of in a way acting as, not just ambassadors to the city, which absolutely you are at this point, but also sort of initiating development around you. So it's like, these neighborhood initiatives, how long has it been? How long did you guys start that?
We just did our first one in the Livernois corridor yesterday, so 7 Mile in Livernois. There was 130 people there. It was the first Soup, and they were so excited. And I hope they have 250 to 300 people coming to their dinners soon enough and having to rethink space and moving out of spaces because people have been in there. I think activating neighborhoods or activating space, like the pop-up movement that's happening in Detroit right now, and I think there's pros and cons to that as well. And I think that if you can help reactivate a space, it can help to kind of maybe spark that imagination of, oh, this else could be in here. It really just does take a couple things to really get that ball moving.
Absolutely, and the Livernois corridor too, there's a lot going on that just, I don't know whether it was sort of planned that way or if it's just happening that, all these things are sort of culminating at the exact same time, but they've got, a whole series of pop-ups that are going on right now. There's some permanent development that's happening. They've just got that huge grant for however much, I forget, millions of dollars or whatever it was. And now Soup is coming there, so it's like all these things are going to start attracting the spotlight to the Livernois corridor in a community that is very strong and very healthy.
It is.
But don't get the attention.
Exactly, and I think it was very much a symbiotic relationship. It was more of like, you guys are moving forward, would you want to use Soup? And they were like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And you can tell that their neighborhood also wants a place to gather and have conversation around a simple meal as well. And so we're also moving into Brightmoor, Grandmont Rosedale, Hubbard Farms, Highland Park. We're doing a youth Soup, which is happening this Sunday at Gleaners. And so that's really exciting. It's an all-youth board, and it's from kids from all across Detroit, from Brightmoor to Southwest to Osborne to Midtown, who are leading it, youth-based projects. Because I will say, adults have a hard time winning when you're going up against a 14-year-old. You just lose. It's hard. So, it's not fair either. I think kids should lose too, right? I think you should. I was youth pastor. I have no shame in this game. And just because you're 14 doesn't make sure that your idea is better. You're just cute, right? And as adults, we want to empower our youth. We feel like this is a good way to do it, and it is. And that's why we started Youth Soup. I think that's the biggest thing, is that we need to hear the ideas of these kids, and maybe we'll be inspired by them to maybe take their idea and partner with them, walk alongside them, and give them the funding. And we'll see what idea really is best, because these kids know what Detroit needs just as much as, probably better than what we think about. So do you think we should take some questions from?
I think now's a good time for questions. I've babbled enough. Do you feel good?
I feel good, yeah. Yeah.
Because you have all these neighborhood soups, I wanted to ask you, how would you go about getting soup in your neighborhood? I live downtown. And I think the downtown soup would be really cool too.
Oh, yeah. So I will repeat the question, yeah. The question was, how does one go about starting a soup within their neighborhood? Well, right now we have a grant with the Knight Foundation and United Way, and we have some funding for you as a neighborhood. Right now, we're at our max capacity, but if you did want to start a soup, email me, and we can start a conversation of what that would look like. What would it look like to start your soup, and what would you need from us? if you did want to start a soup in our neighborhood, what we can offer you is a stipend for rent, all the materials for the bowls and the forks, spoons. We can give you access to our PA. We can share tables and chairs, though we did that last night. I don't know if that's going to work as much as I'd like it to. We can give you a spot on our website, social media access, but I don't want to run your soup. So the whole goal is to try to do like more of an apprenticeship. So we'll walk alongside you, help you start the soup, and after everyone get less and less involved. So it's more about your voice, but using the soup umbrella, and you know the success that we've had with the name of Detroit Soup. You'd get a color. Every neighborhood gets their own color, and kind of branded all the same. It helps.
So to clarify, Detroit Soup is sort of the parent nonprofit. It is an established nonprofit, but people can start their own soups too. Like there is a Ferndale soup as well, which is not as regular, but people can go off and do their own soup if there's not an established soup in your neighborhood or one of the immediate plans.
Right, and we're really excited about this initiative, and we'd love to partner with downtown or a neighborhood that is yet to. We'd love to get on the east side more too. Any other questions?
There are a lot of stories written about Mike Kelly and about the project. In my humble opinion, one of the best ones was Nicole's that was in my. If you haven't read it, you should probably read it. But I'm curious about how or why you wrote that story.
Okay, well, just to kind of give a little bit more background here, I do a lot more than just food writing. I do a lot of arts, culture, entertainment, business development, that sort of thing. So I wear many hats. The Mike Kelly project, Mike Kelly again was from here, from Westland. He moved out to LA when he was still very young. He was basically just out of college. He was in a band called Destroy All Monsters, which the local artist Niagara was also a part of. And so they were kind of like part of this Detroit scene. Mike Kelly went on to be hugely internationally famous. He was selling pieces for millions of dollars. He's got pieces that are in the Guggenheim and in Museum of Modern Art. I mean, he's hugely internationally significant. In some ways, I felt when this mobile homestead project came about, and it was initiated when he was still, he's passed away. It was initiated when he was still alive. And it was a really huge passion for him that he wanted to recreate his childhood home. He actually tried to buy it from the current owner, and the current owner didn't want to sell it, so he wanted to recreate it. And now, I wanted to write that story because I felt like, for as hugely internationally famous as he was, a lot of local people didn't really remember him as being a local person or even really know who he was. I mean, he was kind of this extremely esoteric artist where it's like he had this massive appeal in the art world, but he was not art for your everyday man kind of person. But even though he was very much of that mentality, he had a very conflicted relationship with his fame. So I initially started out wanting to write that story because I wanted to sort of say, look, here's this artist. You know him for his art. He was a very private person. He didn't really, not a lot of people know a lot about his background or his personal life. So I sought out people that knew him very well, whether through his younger days or as an artist, and interviewed all of them. And I said, I want to know who Mike Kelly was as a person, not the artist, but as the person. And I want to share that with the Detroit audience so that they have a better idea of why this really is very significant. And what I came to really sort of discover is that this was a man that, left his home in Detroit and has been searching for it again ever since. I mean, there's no greater symbolism than that mobile homestead that's sitting right out in the back parking lot of a person who was obsessed with the idea of home and returning to it. And that's a theme that is carried throughout his entire work, his entire body of work as an artist. So thank you for your very kind words. It's something that was pretty proud of that piece. Mike Kelly is such a really fascinating and very tragic kind of person to me, and it meant a lot to me to be able to share his story. Go ahead.
Amy, I think that one of the things that you point out is very important because of the changes that have happened. There are a lot of networking opportunities for people so that the ideas that they do have, they can actually get out. So I think that's the big thing. There are folks around that you can partner with, you can surround yourself with, because they're involved in creative activities that will be of benefit to you and help keep you afloat emotionally when you run into those walls of people who are denying and trying to discourage you.
You see it over and over again. I think people just need to know the connecting point. If anyone's ever gone to Slows, if you just watch the door for about, I don't know, a minute, you'll watch people walk by it 17 times. I think that's such a beautiful metaphor of Detroit. We know that the door exists. A lot of times we just don't know where the handle is. And I think that, right? I mean, when I first got involved in the city, it was some very kind people who have spent a lot more time than me here who helped me show where that handle was, who helped me get inside the door and have a beautiful network of people. I mean, Soup started because in 2009, there was a group of women who got together, who did a women's event at the Crowfoot in Pontiac, also in February 2010. And it made us all realize that we weren't alone, that they were like-minded, that we were finding that we had similar fears, similar stumbling blocks, things that were getting in our way, to realize that we were all very magnificent, wonderful, thoughtful women who had a lot to give to this community. And I think Soup is one of those things that if we can, and some of these women are in the room right now, and I think if Soup can be that entry point to have just a normal conversation where people can just be themselves. I'm very humbled by this whole experience of becoming a successful project for the city, but I just want to be me. Like I did this for the community. I'm a very community-minded person. Here are my confessions. I'm not good at taking care of myself, but I'm good at taking care of other people, and I've done that well. And obviously, when other people feel that care and not that anxiousness in the room, it can allow you to kind of maybe put your guard down and find that truer self. Any other questions? Yeah.
When you went to DC, did you see that you dispelled some myths about Detroit?
I tried as best as I could. I had 3 minutes to share what Detroit Soup was, and then I had about another 3 minutes to share what it means to create a safe space. And I hopefully shared that clearly with people. And I think Detroit Soup shares that, we've had over 5,000 people, I think, come through the Detroit Soup doors. And for me, I think, again, whatever you take away from that is up to you. I just hope that, again, the Jam Handy space that we use, it's not perfect, and there's things about it that's growing and changing and being challenged. But we use raw spaces. I mean, when we were in Corktown, we sat on carpet squares because the guy wouldn't clean the floor, and I didn't have a mop, and I wasn't gonna buy one because everything in the Rosa Sparks space I paid for. So, and it was my time, and I was working alongside of that as well. So I hope that over time we've helped dispel myths. I hope so. I don't know. I think it just usually it's like when people get here and they have the experience in this city. This city is incredible. We all know this, so I hope.
I wanted Nicole and Amy to remain here because I think the few minutes that I have to talk about Detroit Food Lab really intersects with Soup and also the work that you're doing as well, Nicole. So real quickly, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Davita Davison. I'm born and raised in the city of Detroit. Left Detroit about 20 years ago and have resided in New York ever since. I used to own a gourmet specialty food store. So unlike Amy and Nicole, who sit to my left and right, I am a foodie. And I am obsessed with food. And so is my family. Much like a lot of African Americans in the city of Detroit, my parents migrated from Alabama to Detroit. I had a gourmet specialty food store in Brooklyn that was named the Southern Pantry Company as a homage to the South. And one of the things that I had the experience of being from Detroit and having parents from the South is that this whole urban agricultural movement that we see in Detroit is not anything at all new to me. It's what my family did for a very, very long time. And my grandparents had a pantry that they basically sold products that they made. So in Brooklyn, probably about 15 or 20 years ago, when I moved there, this whole movement about things that were being created and locally sourced, and homemade and handmade and craftsmanship and artisan jams, jellies and condiments and mustards and mayos. Brooklyn was able to rebrand itself just on food alone. And I thought, wait a minute, what is going on here? Why is it that the people who are part of this artisan community, the people who are creating it, doesn't look like me or anybody like me? What's up with that? And what I realized is that the folks that were doing all of this handcraft artisan work were people who had access, people who may have had money. Not that they were the only ones that have skill, but they had access. So losing my home and losing my business to Hurricane Sandy when it hit New York in November and I lost everything, I came back to the city of Detroit because my parents stay in Southfield. And to be honest, guys, I was just gonna ride it out, wait for my insurance check to come through, and go back east and rebuild. But something happened. Somebody showed me that handle. Somebody showed me that there was a door here in the city of Detroit. And that door was, there was this whole community that was being created in and around food. You talk about Slow's Barbecue, say what you want, but Phil Cooley and his family have activated Michigan Avenue. Say what you want to say, but over on the Brightmoor area, Alicia George has activated Old Redford using a coffee shop called Motor City Java. Say what you want to say, but Ann and Jackie had the wherewithal to create an organic bakery in Cass Corridor 16 years ago? Are you crazy? Say what you want to say, but food can transform a neighborhood. A neighborhood can transform a community, and a community can transform a city. Because what I know is this much, folks. Black, white, Spanish, Arab, Chaldean, Mexican, people will travel to the hood to get some good food. Do you hear me? They will travel to get some good food. So I say all of that to say that somebody showed me that handle. And I saw a fantastic movement that was happening here in the city of Detroit. And I linked up with an organization called Food Lab Detroit, which is really an organization of small food businesses who are practicing what we call the triple bottom line. Because it's not all about the product, it's not all about the price, but it's about the place. Having a sense of place and knowing that you unequivocally are in the city of Detroit, and what are you going to do with your business to help promote the city. So I'm really, really happy that I joined arms with Food Lab Detroit. And I also wear my Eastern Market hat because recently I was hired by Eastern Market because Eastern Market is building out Shed 5. In Shed 5, there is going to be, for the very first time in the city of Detroit, a commercial licensed kitchen space that is going to provide entrepreneurs the opportunity to now have that access that I was talking about. They don't have to worry about going to the west side of the state anymore. They don't have to worry about cooking their food illegally, because you know and I know there's some illegal food that's going on in the city of Detroit, and you already know it's not being cooked out of a commercial kitchen, but we're buying it anyway. So Eastern Market is spearheading that initiative, but before Eastern Market kind of creates that big jewel, Food Lab Detroit and Eastern Market, we are going to activate 2 commercial kitchens in 2 neighborhoods here in the city of Detroit. One in the Southwest and one in Osborne. We're going to partner with 2 kitchens. We're going to activate those spaces, and we're going to invite food entrepreneurs to now start using those spaces to start to create food businesses in their neighborhood. So I'm really, really happy about an initiative that I'm working on that's called Detroit Kitchen Connect. And again, I've seen what food can do. I know the power of food. I talked about Alicia George over in Brightmoor, but right across the street from Alicia George's coffee shop, there's a place that's called Sweet Potato Sensations. And if you guys follow them on Twitter or if you've been to Whole Food, they sold out a sweet potato pie in an hour in Whole Food opening day. They can't keep the pies there. They can't keep the cookies there. Food is going to help grow that community. So I'm really, really happy to be back home in the city of Detroit and really having a part in playing how food can be a conduit to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship can be a vehicle for retail and business ownership, and that can help to transform a community and a neighborhood. So thank you guys so much.